Coming up on this week's show, some big Atari and Namco news.
The Amiga turns 40.
A WeChat wacky inventions and floppy disks with Rob Smith.
And the Retro Hour podcast is brought to you each and every Friday with our sponsors, our friends at Bitmap Books. Now, have you seen their upcoming new book, 50 Indie Games That Changed the World? Celebrating the development and the legacy of some of those titles that made a huge impact outside of the typical AAA studios, including some of the early ones in there, like Super Meat Boy and Limbo, to classics like Shovel Knight and Dead Cells, and lots more as well, weighing in at more than 450 pages. You can pre-order that right now and find out more on their website at bitmapbooks.com. And with our brand new sponsor, our friends at Replay Events, who next weekend are going to be holding their first ever Sheffield Gaming Market. Now, that's going to be happening on Sunday, the 3rd of August. Link in this week's show notes, and we'll tell you more about that very soon. Hello and welcome to the Retro Hour podcast, episode number 490, your weekly dose of retro gaming and technology news with me, Dan Wood.
Me, Ravi Abbott.
And me, Joe Fox.
And a very warm welcome to this week's show, the podcast that every Friday brings you up to speed on all the big happenings in the world of retro, chatting about what's been going on in retro news, which I know sounds a bit of a contradiction in terms, but lots been happening this week, and also welcomes on veterans of the industry and just interesting people from the community for a chat on the podcast every week on an interview in the second half of the show. And actually, I've been looking this week. Turns out some pretty big things happened on This Week in History in the world of tech and gaming. 1999 in this week. You must remember
that noise haunted me when when I was a kid. It's just like, oh, message, gotta go, look.
It still makes me do that, like, oh, I missed a message. MSN Messenger, of course, came out this week in 1999.
I wonder if you played that on the bus. If anyone turned around,
looks,
like, yeah.
I just remember being at college and that going off like across the entire computer lab until they eventually banned it, 'cause that's all anyone was using it for. This week in 1968, Intel was founded, which now Intel are not doing all that well currently, but obviously been a huge company in the history of tech. And also this week, July 23rd, back in 1985, the day that the Commodore Amiga 1000 first went on sale, which obviously we're going to be talking a bit more about very soon. But actually, that ties in quite nicely to our guest this week, because we've got Rob Smith on the show this week. Now, Rob is someone, whenever I've been to an Amiga event anywhere in the last, 5 years or so, whether it be like huge events or even just your local Robin Hood Amiga users group that you do here in Nottingham, Rob is always there showing off some wacky invention, isn't he?
You know, I wonder why we've not had Rob on the show before. And we were chatting about it and we were like, actually, he does some amazing stuff, really innovative. So when you say wacky inventions, it kind of means, he's doing innovative stuff that nobody's ever thought of before. But, presenting kind of retro projects in a very different way. So one of the projects that he's done, which is really good, that's filled the gap, is Retro Directory.
Yes.
Absolutely fantastic site. We're going to talk about some of the new stuff on that site, because that's got event listings. It's just fantastic. It's got user groups in there.
If you ever go to like a new town or a new city and you think, is there anything retro gaming related happening around here? Yeah. First place you go, isn't it? Retro.directory.
And it will tell you the stores and like the points of interest. Really, really useful. But then also he's got these wacky inventions. And one I saw this last weekend at the Amiga 40 event in Cambridge was his floppy disk whack-a-mole game, which I played myself. And that's a fairly new one, which is pretty cool. It's got a soundtrack by DJ Hoffman, and you have to smack the floppy disks in as they're kind of popping out and they're firing out and they're going all over the floor. It's
Do you get like a foam hammer with them, like in the arcade?
No, you got to do it with your hands. And you've got to really bang them in. Like it's quite tough, actually. He's also done a floppy disk cleaner. And this isn't just, a small pad that does it. This mounts a floppy disk like a car wash, kind of goes through it, cleans it to a soundtrack. It's pretty amazing. And, I think Rob's understanding of this technology is fantastic, because not only has he done these kind of novelty fun things, levitating boing balls and all types of items, he's got a really deep understanding of how floppy disks work. And, he worked on Drawbridge, which is a fantastic project, but also a floppy disk copying station, which was great for, duplicating disks and using Xcopy as well on there, which is that absolutely legendary piece of software.
We should mention as well that he's got an awesome YouTube channel where he covers all this stuff.
Yes.
He did a great 45-minute deep dive documentary and also interviewed some of the original guys behind Xcopy, which I thought was fascinating. You mentioned that Drawbridge software as well. That was actually had some famous uses. One of the Lemmings level editors was recovered from one of Mike Daly's old floppy disks using that software. So doing his bit to preserve history with it as well. So
yeah, he's also wrote some drivers as well that have gone onto Windows, and they support the Amiga floppy standard natively, but also he's been doing it for the Mac and the Atari ST. Yeah. So he's definitely any floppy retro project there, Rob will kind of get involved with and do his own take on it, which is really, really good to see.
So, and he's all self-taught as well, so it's really interesting. So our special guest this week, Rob Smith, developer, YouTuber, wacky inventor, lots more as well. And, of course, the man behind the awesome Retro Directory. He's on the show in around half an hour from now. Now, before that, time to have a look at what's been happening in Retro from over the last 7 days. Another busy week. And starting with this one, I'm not sure how I feel about this story because, I don't know about you, Joe, but this one sounds hideously unsafe.
Yeah, I don't understand the need for this or the reason for it. In the trailer, I was just a bit like, oh, right, okay, that's a bit of a weird thing to kind of market and say in the trailer. So Atari are bringing versions of some of their classic games to Volkswagen cars. So I didn't realize that this was a market or this was a thing, gaming in your car.
It probably should have been.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of separate it, obviously I completely understand, a passenger playing the Switch or playing a Game Boy back in the day in their car. But this is a platform called Air Console, which you can get in Volkswagen vehicles, new ones, where you know how a lot of modern cars now have, the smart computer, the smart screen on the dashboard. Yeah. Kind of thing, which
I've got it up on Google Maps on there. I've got to plug my phone in and get Spotify on it. Legit uses.
Yeah, legit uses. I use mine for Spotify, but there's an app called Air Console that you can download for it, and this has been around for a few years, from what I understand, and they've partnered with Atari to bring a bunch of classic Atari games to it. So we've got Asteroids Recharged and Breakout Recharged, which have already come out this week. And then we're getting Missile Command Recharged, which has also been announced, but we've not got a date for that yet. So that's kind of the headline. Atari have partnered with them so you can play on, I guess, the smart screen in your car, these games from using your mobile device as the controller. But in the trailer, it says and I'm paraphrasing here, it says something like bringing your your car gaming to the next level or something like that. And I was like, who's thinking this is a market they need to get in on? Is this what?
So already this happened with the Teslas long ago. The Teslas already had some gaming.
You can watch YouTube on that screen on the Tesla, I've seen, yeah.
Yeah, and, there's a lot of stuff about distraction driving and all of this, but I don't think this is for that. This is you remember when they used to have those portable DVD players and they'd sit in the back of the seat, behind the seat, and it would just shut the kids up and they can sit there and watch something. There were a few console adaptation things to do that. I guess they can sit at the back with a Switch or something like that. This being on the heads-up display is a bit kind of odd because it's at the front of the car. But my assumption is it's when you've gone out, you've left the kids in the car or something, and you just need something to entertain them. I find it's a bit weird in the advert that there's a couple pulled up let's game on the car,
and the guys in the driving seat
on a date night. Yeah, but I probably assume it's just a console at the front because they wouldn't have one in the back of seats now. I haven't seen that for a long time.
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm not a complete idiot. I know this isn't meant for the driver to play while they're driving. Like a complete.
Well, mate, some may put it on autopilot and be like,
yeah,
right, let's go. You know, I've seen some bad videos of autopilot before.
I just think it's bizarre, but like you say, it's meant to be. It's like advertised for like long car journeys for the kids in the back, but it's like, what are they doing? Are they kind of like leaning into the middle of the car and like leaning over playing? Because like you say, it is only like a little 7-inch screen like next to the driver's dashboard.
One of them seems to be a multiple choice quiz game, which I can imagine like the kid has the unit and then shouts out like, "Hey dad, what happened in this year?" And then they do the answer, and that might be kind of fun. I guess it's just it's a screen that's not being used, so Atari are like, let's jump on that.
See, but that's my point is like, okay, I've got two things that spring to mind on here, and someone's actually said this in the comments, it's an awful idea having distracting content on that screen when you're driving, which is why you can have like audio applications work on there, but stuff like, YouTube and Netflix and that generally doesn't. If I ask Siri anything in my car, it often says, I can't do that while you're driving.
CarPlay.
And also, if you're on a long road trip, generally you've got maps on there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And also that the size of those screens, like you said, Joe, it's like 7 inches normally. I mean, like, most kids have probably got an iPad or a tablet or something that's about that size anyway.
There's a lot of stuff about distraction driving at the moment. Though. Like, oh God, I listen to, Spotify and stuff, and you get the adverts on sometimes. And some of them play like sounds of cars crashing and like, sirens and stuff. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm driving, looking around, and it's like on the advert. Yeah, it's, I think there needs to be more responsibility in that area. But let's see, they might make some sales through this, actually. Who knows? Somebody in another country where they're traveling through the desert might want to pull over and play some games if they're a bit tired or something,
I mean, I imagine it will probably be one of those things that only works probably when the car's parked. It probably won't work when you're doing 70 miles an hour down the M1, I would hope. But I think it's just anyway, they can get a few extra gimmicks in there to make them more sellable, I guess. So could be an interesting thing to play with.
It's a screen. It's going to get filled up,
Yeah. I'm surprised you haven't hacked yours already. If you have got a Volkswagen, those are coming soon. Now, this is a story that we covered years and years ago, early days of this podcast, all the way back in 2017. This first appeared on Kickstarter. And I remember back then, actually, that we were quite hyped about, not only a new Mega Drive game, which weren't all that common almost a decade ago, but also the fact that this game looked very cool as well. Obviously, we're all big fans of kind of side-along beat 'em ups, particularly you, Joe. And I remember you being quite hyped for this. A game called Paprium that was a crowdfunder for the Genesis/Mega Drive that has had a whole history of drama and delays and unfulfilled promises over the last decade. I didn't realise quite to what extent. I was looking it up. Apparently it did get into the hands of some of the backers quite late. They promised it would come out in winter 2017. It didn't make that deadline, but apparently some of the backers did receive their copies in 2020. But apparently there are still a load of them. They only made like a handful of copies. So there's still a load of customers who paid for the game almost a decade ago that still haven't had a chance to play it. However, now it looks like there will be a way that everyone can play Paprium if you have the relevant hardware on your Mega Drive.
Yeah, you've nailed it there. I didn't realise how many people actually backed this. Like, it got almost $1 million on the second run of its Kickstarter, which apparently is the majority of people who still haven't got the game. And then I think that Kickstarter even said that it was going to come to the Switch and console and everything, and it's just not happened. And it's been years and years and years. In Time Extension here, they cover it and they say, usually we're not ones to promote, kind of like ROMing, emulating games and stuff like that. But they also understand that thousands of people backed this and never got the game, And interestingly, I actually went on the Kickstarter page and they did actually put an update out only a couple of months ago, but you can only read it if you backed the Kickstarter. So I'm quite interested what the actual updates are. They are still regularly giving out updates like a couple a year. So maybe the game is still coming to those people. But historically, this game has been, inverted commas, impossible to emulate due to custom hardware that was used to get the game running on cartridge in the first place, to get it running on Mega Drive/Genesis.
I was reading some of the comments that apparently it's got like an MP3 soundtrack which is one of the reasons that it's been hard to emulate.
Yeah, so it's been, it can't be emulated. However, somebody called Crix, or is it Crix? Or
Crix, yeah, the guy behind the EverDrives.
Yeah, the guy behind the EverDrives has been updating us pretty much day by day for the last week, saying that he's working on getting it working on the Mega EverDrive Pro, which I believe is the most powerful one he put out a couple of years ago, which is the one where you can play like Sega CD games and stuff on it without Sega CD, isn't it? With some, emulation magic that I don't understand. He has got it running literally yesterday. He got it running, but he's been posting like every day, like saying it's coming soon. I'm working on it. But yeah, he's got it running on flash cart on original hardware, which is fantastic. And the game, say what you will about, the story behind it and everything, it looks absolutely fantastic and sounds fantastic.
Is this because it's using so many hardware tricks? It was really hard to kind of get a cart that was, available to do all of the stuff and also have all that extra memory and stuff like that.
You mean the reason for the delays?
Yes, yeah. I'm not quite sure because I've heard it's quite a long history, but obviously that EverDrive has a load of grunt in it, so that may be capable of doing it. I can imagine it's using tons of hardware tricks the way that it looks.
Yeah, I mean, it looks beautiful. I watched a few of the reviews and they said that actually when you get past the visuals and the audio, it's a pretty standard kind of beat 'em up. There's not really, gameplay wise, it's not all that special.
Yeah.
But obviously it's a beautiful looking game, and a lot of people have paid for it, so they want a way to play it.
When it finally did come out, the most special thing I heard about it, other than the graphics and everything, was that it had multiple options throughout the game, which gave you different endings to how the game kind of played out, and what characters you could use throughout the game. So if you use this character and went and decided to go this direction, as in like, when you get to like a fork in the road, the game played out like differently. But then the problem with that was it then locked it into that save slot, and there was only like 3 save slots on the cartridge which you couldn't overwrite, which was interesting. So that might be with emulation on the EverDrive here, people may be able to get around that, have multiple versions of it. But I wonder, Crix hasn't given much of like a how he got it running, and how you said there's like custom MP3 hardware on there. I wonder if it's like something he had to dump into the files of the ROM maybe to get it to work.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a few videos that he's put up on X of it running on there at the moment. And interesting, if you have got one of the Mega EverDrive Pros, the firmware to run this has been uploaded by him. Interestingly, onto LimeWire,
Brilliant.
which I've just followed the link. LimeWire.com is now actually a file sharing website, like WeTransfer. And it's got like the old logo,
Genius.
which I never knew. That's cool.
Just never knew. I thought it was a crypto. God knows.
No, yeah, just apparently you can upload files of any size of up to 4 gigabytes for free. So yeah, so interesting though, and I think, time extension in their article that I put in the show notes. Great summary of it all, and they've got all the videos and stuff embedded on there as well. And they, like you said then, they said, they usually wouldn't encourage people to pirate a modern retro game, but they said the fact that, they've taken people's money from not 1 but 2 crowdfunding campaigns and still haven't fulfilled their side of the bargain. They said they'll leave the morals at the door. And I do understand that, obviously if you paid for it and you want a way to play it. I've seen a lot of like angry comments, people going like, the company Watermelon, they're like, screw them, here's a link to the ROM, and people have been posting it in places. So I've seen it quite a lot on X and stuff and forums over the last few days. So it's definitely going to be reaching a wider audience soon by the looks of it. So if you have been interested in Papri and maybe you backed it, could be a way to finally have a chance to play that. So I'll link that article in this week's show notes. Of course, you were in Cambridge over the weekend, Ravi. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. I double booked for the big Amiga 40 celebrations there. Decent event then. That's a little show report. How was it?
Yeah, it was awesome. I met so many listeners. So many people came over and said, hi, you were missed, Dan. It was really nice to see people talking about the podcast and saying they've been listening since episode 1. I went down there with the Amiga Addict magazine guys, and it was an interesting event. It wasn't as busy as it could have been and as what I was expecting, because RJ Michael sadly had to cancel just before as well, which, was kind of one of the main attractions for going down. But there was still a lot of really good people. So you had Tony Warrener, of Beneath Steel Skies, Stu Cambridge of Sensible Software, John Hare, of course, of Sensible Software. Andrew Barnabas was there. We also had David Pleasance, ex-Commodore MD and current Commodore man. We also had Andy Davidson as well, the creator of Worms, which was amazing. It was like, I've always wanted to talk to Andy, so bumping into him was fantastic.
Yeah, and I know you're working on hopefully getting him on the show. Fingers crossed.
Be great.
Watch this space. So, so it looked a great event from the pictures I saw as well. I mean, have been. I love it when stuff that we're into makes it into like kind of mainstream. Like today, I don't know if you saw on there, the Metro, which is, I think it's still a newspaper. You used to get like handed a free copy when you got on a bus or a train.
You still do.
Yeah, I haven't been on a bus for a while, I got to admit. But there's a website as well. This is like a mainstream newspaper. They actually did an article today, the 20 best Commodore Amiga games to celebrate the 40th birthday of the Amiga. I love how they talk about it as well. They said its success was one of the reasons that the NES never took off in the UK. It said, however, once the Mega Drive and the SNES came along in the early 90s, the Amiga became overshadowed and eventually all but forgotten.
Well, I think it's a little nod to the Amiga, this little piece, but it's not giving it as much justice as it deserves. I think that the main thing was creativity with it. Gaming side was really cool, but a lot of games were created on it, and I would like to see the top Amiga programs on there, D-Paint and Pro Tracker and all of that kind of creativity behind it. I think it's cool that they've got this little list as well. And, this year, Joe's probably been like, oh my God, they're talking so much Amiga, because it is like the
I can hear him snoring.
You always do.
Listen. Yeah.
You always do, it's fine.
It hasn't just been this year.
But do you think it's been more recently, Joe, more than usual?
No.
No, it's just the same.
It's just the same.
You know what,
80% Amiga.
You make a good point there, Ravi. Sometimes you and I think we bang on about the Amiga a bit too much. We've had a few reviews, one or two, saying that on Apple Podcasts. And I think if you actually put us into Google, that's one of the things that Google Gemini, the AI summary thing says, doesn't it? That we can be a bit Amiga heavy sometimes. Yeah. I will say, though, the Amiga episodes that we put out are always the most popular ones. So,
there you go.
What does that say? But yeah, I mean, it's nice to see this list. I mean, I won't go through the whole thing. A few in here. Alien Breed, obviously Team 17s. Legendary Shooters, they make the list as well. They've got Flashback in there as well, which obviously came out on a load of different platforms. To me, though, that will always be an Amiga game. I mean, awesome 2D platform. Great in the Mega Drive as well. But then Cannon Fodder makes it into the list. Frontier Elite 2, again, that still I need to figure out. Were you like an Elite 2 player back then? Did you play Frontier much?
I just pressed the buttons and I was like, can I take off? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was about to say.
What am I doing? Yeah.
I don't think I could take off.
I think this is missing Theme Park. Theme Park was a huge one for me.
There's a few missions. Got IK Plus Lemmings is on there. Got Rainbow Islands as well, which was great on the Amiga.
Good to see Civ as well in there.
Yeah, Civ Sensible Soccer makes a list as well. Supercars 2. I'd probably put Lotus ahead of that, if I'm honest. Speedball 2's on there as well. Populous. Starglider 2. Exile. Monkey Island's on there as well. The Sentinel. WizKid. Worms does get a nod, which is nice to see as well. A few bigger missions for me. No Chaos Engine on there, which absolutely would make my list of must-play Amiga games back in the day. I think Pinball Fantasies, Pinball Dreams will be on that list as well for me. I imagine Syndicate will be on there for you as well, Ravi.
Yeah.
Whenever you get these lists, they're always subjective from whoever wrote them, which is completely understandable. And I will say...
And also, like, how much space they've been given on the article as well. How many games can they fit in?
Yeah. And there was a few that I wouldn't instantly think of, games like Hunter, which I don't think I've ever actually played that game on the Amiga. So,
I love that, yeah.
Yeah, one or two that maybe I'll have a look at. So always nice to see the Amiga getting some mainstream coverage. If you want to check out that list, I'll shove that in this week's show notes. And happy birthday to the Commodore Amiga.
Turrican. Why is Turrican not in there?
A lot of people associate that with the 64, don't they? But yeah,
true,
I agree, Amiga version. Now, we have got some more really interesting stories on the way soon, including what Sir Clive Sinclair's nephew is up to at the moment. He's got something very cool on the go. And also some huge Namco news in just a minute. Now, before we do that, let's take a second to welcome on a brand new sponsor. It is a new sponsor, but a very old and dear friend of ours. It is our mates at Replay Events. Now, I'm sure you know Replay Events behind the legendary Play Expo. And of course, they do these incredible gaming markets all around the UK. And actually, next weekend, date for your diary, get this marked in, Sunday, the 3rd of August at the Ponds Forge Leisure Centre in Sheffield. They're going to be doing the very first Sheffield gaming market. Now, often if you go to these events all around the country, Joe, you're often there, aren't you, selling with your mate Jason on your Days of Thunder gaming stand. What can people expect from these events?
Oh, man, they're just getting better and better. They are getting huge. Like, we used to get, God, we've been going to these for what, 10 years, 9 years? Yeah. You know, we used to get one kind of like in Doncaster, then one in Blackpool. It is absolutely fantastic to see them, you know, popping up all over the place. You know, Sheffield next week. It's really, really exciting, you know, real central location as well, which is really cool. But essentially what you can expect is a ginormous hall, absolutely full of retro game traders. And you can usually find anything there. You know, I'm always on the hunt for Mega Drive games or anything just fun or anything kind of like retro game related. So whether that's merchandise or kind of like retro handhelds, you know, any toys, figurines, anything like that, you know, you're going to find original stuff from like the 70s, the 80s, 90s, 2000s. But you're also going to find a lot of like handmade stuff as well, which is really cool. A lot of independent sellers there as well. But obviously for me, the crux of it is absolutely, you know, the private sellers and the shops that are going to be there. You always get fantastic shops that are going to be there, like Vintage Gamer, Saw Fun are usually there as well. So any of these shops which are kind of like all around the UK, sometimes a lot of them will they will travel down or travel up and they'll be at the games markets. And it's just wicked to have them there. And then you've got the people, you know, private collections as well being sold. And you can usually get yourself some absolute deals.
Way cheaper than eBay, aren't they?
Yeah, way cheaper than eBay. Like you say, I usually go down there and work on my mate Jason's stand, sling a few repeat games, end up coming back with more than what I went out with, just because I find so much treasure at them. But yeah, man, Sheffield one's going to be absolutely wicked next week.
And you're not like paying delivery as well.
Yeah.
Which,
and it's exciting.
I think really helps. Yeah.
It's exciting to see it there in person. You know, see what the condition of the game is, see what the condition of the manual is. You know, you obviously get your hardcore collectors who go, but it's also cool to just go like and take your kids, you know, and just kind of look at some of the stuff from back in the day and just be like, oh my God, I remember this. You might end up with a Sega Mega Drive by accident or a PlayStation 1 and relive a few of those games. But yeah, they're wicked.
I feel like you're talking about me there, Joe. Didn't I pick up my third Mega Drive at the last one we went to? I said, I haven't got a Mega Drive 2. I do need one of those in my collection.
Yeah, and the one before I went with you, you bought an Asian Mega Drive with the purple logo as well, because you were like, I've not got one of them.
Yeah, keep me away from the Mega Drives next weekend. And magazines. I always end up buying all magazines to come back with
the magazines that you used to have.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the thing. I got rid of all my magazines, tried to buy them back off eBay. Obviously, got to pay. You buy them off eBay, it's postage costs and all that for each one. When I see a big stack of them, normally for like, you know, £3 or £4. Yeah, irresistible for me. But yeah, I mean, you did mention going with the family. So for this event that's happening in Sheffield next weekend, Sunday, 3rd of August, kids go free from 1 o'clock in the afternoon as well. And tickets for adults are just £3.50 as well. So absolute bargain if you want a good day out. If you're anywhere near Sheffield or worth driving to as well, like you said, you can get some absolute bargains there. So your journey there, I'm sure, will pay for itself. And they've got some cool stuff there as well, not just the markets and the traders as well. You know, we've been talking about this new light gun, the Game, which absolutely smashed its Kickstarter a few weeks ago. They're going to be there, and it's actually the first time at any gaming market that you can get a hands-on of it as well. So if you followed that on the podcast over the last few weeks, go and check that out. Our mates at Bitmap Books are going to be there with their entire catalogue as a library. So if you want a bit of a browse before you buy, you know, you get a nice brand new sealed one as well. So they're just such good fun as well. I mean, whenever we go to them, we spend half the day just chatting to people as well, don't we? So we always loads of like-minded people there as well. So definitely one for the calendar. We'd love to see you there next weekend. Happening in Sheffield, the first ever Sheffield Gaming Market. Tickets on sale right now. If you need the website address, I'll put it in the show notes, but you can head to sheffieldgamingmarket.com. And thanks to our friends at Replay Events for their support of the podcast. All right, then. Now, we did say that Sir Clive Sinclair's nephew has been up to some interesting things recently. This is Grant Sinclair, who's got a website, grantsinclair.com, kind of following a bit in his uncle's footsteps. I see there is there's some e-bikes on there that look very similar to kind of a modern version of the C5, if you've got to spare £10,000.
Yeah, they look kind of like a souped up C5 for the modern age.
A bit like something you might see in Tron.
Yes, yeah, very, very Tron-y. Yeah. But what we're talking about is a new product, which is actually a Raspberry Pi. And this is a Raspberry Pi kind of grab and go gaming console. This is pretty amazing. I've not seen many people talking about this. And what I like is it is one of the thinnest consoles I've ever seen in my life. It looks like it's thinner than a phone. It's pretty amazing. It's called the gamer card. It's basically a console with your screen in there, your battery, you've got all your connectivity as well. You've got a Raspberry Pi in there, Raspberry Pi Zero, but it's the 2W board as well.
Right, nice and thin, yeah.
Yeah, really thin. It's got these weird kind of controls in there as well. But the idea is that it's just pick up and play. And the shape of it is like one of these cards. You know, when you go into a game shop and you get one of these cards with a redemption code or something in, it's basically that size.
Right, really small. Yeah, hold it in the palm of your hand. It looks very cool. I think obviously having the Sinclair legacy is awesome. And the fact that it's a Raspberry Pi in there, I mean, I guess you could kind of run anything that you can run on a Pi.
Oh no, yeah, you can run Quake on this. You know, it's not to be fooled with. It's quite powerful. It's also got like loudspeakers in there as well. So every component must be really flat, and the way that they've designed the circuit board is it's in kind of layers, and everything's stacked on top of it. So it's kind of really compactly fit in there. And you know, I think if it was a bit cheaper, it could really be like just pick up, play. And like we were talking about it on the Discord, and Gareth said it's like a kind of disposable vapor video game.
I mean, it's £125. So for what
I was like, yeah, it's a very expensive one.
Yeah, I mean, 125 quid for the fact you get the Pi in there. You also get it's one thing I like about it is it's a square screen in there as well, so you're not kind of stretching stuff out into widescreen.
Yeah.
High resolution, 254 ppi, 4-inch square IPS screen. And like you said, you got the speakers in there too. You got the kind of like looks a bit like D-pads. It reminds me of those kind of, do you remember like you got on the, was it like the Steam controller that had like a flat D-pad on there?
I kind of guess, yeah. It looks a bit iPod wheelie.
Yeah, I don't know whether it rotates.
As well. Yeah, I'd love to play with one and see how it kind of feels. I guess you can hack this to hell as well because it's a Pi.
Yeah, I mean, you can put anything on it.
Yeah, they're talking about Pico 8 as well, you know, doing some development on there. But it's a really weird and obscure kind of console, but I think it deserves a lot more attention. I'd love to actually see one of these at like a retro gaming show or something and have a play.
And it comes preloaded with 2 games on there that apparently were originally on the Switch from indie developers, now being adapted and optimized, I said, for the gamer card platform. I've not played either of these. One is called Blue Kid 2. There's apparently a pixel-perfect action platformer with swimming stages, boss battles, and Astro Blade DX, which I have heard that name before, I'm sure. I don't think I've played it before, though, which is a space shooter, rhythm-based game as well. And apparently there's you can also get the Saboteur Trilogy, by Clive Townsend as well. That's currently been updated for the gamer card as well. So it's cool to see stuff being made for it.
I'd love to know Joe's opinion on this because I know Joe's a fan of handheld systems. What do you think of this new take on a handheld console?
I can't help but think it looks like a Kindle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And in my naive mind was just kind of like, I'd probably break this. And
Does it look too delicate for your fingers?
It looks too delicate for me. And I'd struggle with the pads, if that makes sense. Like I'm it's too close to touchscreen gaming for me. Like I'm not big on like gaming on my phone at all, like whatsoever, to be perfectly honest. So
what if they have like a little bit of feedback, like if you touch them and they've got like a little haptic kind of bit of feedback,
like forced feedback, like a little bit of a vibrate or something? That'd be better.
Yeah,
that'd be better. I just think for the price tag, like you'd have to be really into this, you know. Yeah. I can think of a guy at work who's kind of like into these things, and he'd probably be really into this. So I'll probably end up talking to him about it at work. But personally, it's probably not for me. But it's cool to see, and it is the legacy of it as well, which is probably the coolest thing about it. I would say. Yeah,
I agree. Just being able to hold a Sinclair product, and it's black. Looks like these Spectrums, that kind of style, doesn't it? Which I imagine is not an accident. I think it's cool. I mean, obviously the fact that it runs on a Raspberry Pi. I don't know about you guys, but after that story last week about that YouTuber, getting possibly facing a prison sentence, I'd be a bit nervous about selling these fully loaded, which it does mention that some people may.
I think it looks like, if you went to a video game show and you got these as a card or a gift, in the future, like you had it hanging around your neck and it had like a display or a game on it or something, but then at 125 quid. But I'm sure you could do this like lower spec. This looks like it's quite high spec, and it looks like it may be made with metal as well, to give it that kind of security. I can't imagine it's like very flimsy plastic.
Yeah, it doesn't actually say what it's built of on here, just that it's ultra thin. It says on the website. Apparently the control pads are made of silicon, it says, which I imagine might give them a bit of a kind of squishy feel.
Which I think that's like the old Spectrum keys.
Yeah, I mean, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah. Which, that'd be a nice nod to the past. I mean, I agree. It is probably, it is a bit expensive just to be an impulse kind of buy. But if you're in the market for kind of a handheld Raspberry Pi, the fact that it's an open platform as well, so you can kind of load it with anything you like, arcade games.
And it's like available now to buy as well. It's not like a Kickstarter or anything that's come out. So you can get your £10,000 futuristic Z5, and then whip this out.
Play this while you're driving on it. Yeah, I like it. So the gamer card from GrantSinclair.com if you want to get hold of one of those. Now, this is always cool to see. Obviously, we did cover quite in depth when it came out a couple of years ago. We even had some of the team on the podcast as well. The new Atari 2600 Plus, which is a new update of the old Atari 2600 using modern hardware that actually plays original cartridges and is kind of the same form factor, but obviously new components inside. And to mark Pac-Man's 45th anniversary this year, there is some cool stuff coming out of Atari and Namco, including a limited edition new version of the Atari 2600 Plus in glorious Pac-Man yellow.
Yeah, I was surprised to see this. Like, one, I thought, I don't know why I thought Pac-Man was older than that. I thought he was more like 50. But I haven't seen much, if anything, about the Atari 2600 Plus. Like, I know Atari have been on a roll with a lot of the stuff they've been doing in the last couple of years. I don't know whether this is, I mean, obviously the Atari 2600 was bigger in America anyway, a lot bigger. So I don't know if there's more about it from kind of like the American side of things, because I'm not really seeing it being spoke about in the kind of like, I guess, the circles I'm in and the things I'm watching on YouTube. But I see this more as like a display piece more than anything. Like, obviously it's perfectly playable, but and I think it's wicked. Like, it's very garish, but I think it's awesome to see it in that Pac-Man yellow. And I like the style of it with the ghosts on the front, chasing Pac-Man on there. I think that looks really, really cool with the yellow controller and everything. But I really do see this as like, you stick it on the shelf, like, in the games room or in the office, and it's just like a nod to like your childhood kind of thing. Like, I see it
if you're a Pac-Man fan, because I mean, I've seen pictures of people like in Retro Gamer magazine who've got like Pac-Man everything, wall clocks, like the old cereal boxes from the 80s. So if you're a big Pac-Man collector, this would look awesome on your shelf.
Yeah,
that glorious yellow.
Yeah, that it does look. It's such a thin line of like, oh my god, that's horrible, and oh my god, this looks awesome. Like,
but that's the thing. It's not just for looks. They also feature a 2-in-1 cartridge that comes bundled with it as well. Called Pac-Man Double Feature, that features the Pac-Man 7800 version, which I think was all right from memory, but also the horrific Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man. You ever played that with it's flickering?
It flickers everywhere, doesn't it? Yeah. Like, terribly, yeah. Yes. You can also buy separately the Ghost editions of the joysticks, so all in the different colours of the Ghosts, which is really cool as well. Nice. So for people who might already have the 2600, the 2600 Plus, sorry, and they don't necessarily want to fork out for another one in yellow, they might just want to buy the controllers. But then, as I say that, I'd be like, I'd want the yellow controller as well. So
I think there's so much Pac-Man merch out there. You could probably like just lead your life as a Pac-Man fan and have your Pac-Man suit,
based food.
Pac-Man breakfast.
Are you guys the same though? Whenever I cut a pizza, I was going to Pac-Man mouth out first.
That's how it was invented, Dan.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Yeah.
Onto that legacy. So yeah, pre-orders for that actually just went up the day we're recording this, actually. So 23rd of July, $169.99 pre-orders. No word on your UK pricing yet, so I'm not sure whether this is a US exclusive, but that will open by the time the podcast comes out. That'll be up and running, so I'll link it in the show notes. We'll have a look. If you don't want to buy one of these though, you just want to get involved in a bit of the Pac-Man celebrations. If you have got the Atari 50 collection for your modern console, I've got that on PS5. There's actually some new DLC they're going to be dropping as well, including 3 of the Atari Pac-Man games. So you've got Pac-Man 2600, 5200, and Atari 8-bit as well, it says, which I imagine would have been a version for like the Atari 400, 800 computers, I imagine. So they reckon that'll be the first ever re-release of these games for consoles. So I think that's the thing about the Atari 50. I mean, when I bought that, God, how many years ago it was now? It must have been a good few years ago that came out. It does seem like they're just dropping new DLC for that all the time as well. So it is like a living collection, which is awesome to see. So that's going to be landing very soon. If you have got the Atari 50 collections, if you want to read more about those, their pre-orders are available right now. I'll link that in this week's show notes. That's one final story for everyone else. Patrons, you get a few extra. They're on the way in just a second. This is very cool, though. Now, you might remember, I think it might have been start of the year, we were covering a YouTuber who does these crazy mods. A guy called, I believe he pronounced it Vettel Griffin. He did that Kawaii Wii, which was basically a Wii console that you could hang off your keyring, if I remember.
Yeah. And he uses like real motherboards, doesn't he? He takes the components and then
chops them up.
Chops them up and uses some weird adapters and all kinds of stuff in there.
Yeah, now he's revealed his latest mad scientist project, and this one is I've got to admit, this looks incredibly cool. If this had come out back in the day, I'd have been all over this. It is a handheld SNES that plays physical Super Nintendo cartridges.
I'm in love. I think it just looks beautiful. Like you said, he's done a PlayStation one before, which is really well done, actually.
I'm sure we talked about that, didn't we, when it came out? Yeah. We did it,
Like, to me, this looks like something that could become a Kickstarter. I think it's probably going to be an individual one-off proof of concept, but I'd love to see like a modding kit to be able to do this. It's kind of like, it looks like a Game Gear, but also maybe a Sega Nomad. You've got the cart sticking out the back. I just think it looks stunning. I really want to get a SNES. It's the one thing I didn't have. I'd love to get a SNES, and I've got a kind of like a lot of expensive rich friends had SNESes, and I was like, I want to get one of them. And now I'm older and I can afford one. I might actually sit down and play with one.
This might be an extreme way to get your hands on a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, but that would be a mega cool way.
Yeah, but I mean, describing it, like you said, even the button layout, kind of a little bit kind of inspired by the Game Gear, I imagine. In jet black, the width of it's not much wider than the Super Nintendo cartridge, is it? Maybe it looks like a couple of inches either side. To make room for the shoulder buttons, which, looking at that, I thought it looks very modern because there's USB-C on top of it, I imagine, to charge it. Shoulder buttons on there as well. Then I remember actually the Super Nintendo, I think, was the first console to have shoulder buttons on the controller, if I'm not mistaken.
Quiz question there.
Yeah, one for the Christmas quiz this year. But yeah, I think, you got a gorgeous screen up front there as well. Would be awesome. I wonder how heavy it would be, though, having the original components inside there as well. And obviously having it's a 6-layer PCB that's in there. He's got an LCD driver, the Shinobi scaler for the LCD. And also there's a Super EverDrive built into it as well. Real cartridges connect via the large connector on the back of it. So by the sounds of it, you can put, with the built-in EverDrive, you can just whack an SD card in there and have all the games loaded on it too.
I like that he's sharing it as well. He's blogging about it on BitBuilt, which is a great forum. And, I think that's really cool because some people create these things, just put them out there and then they're like, look at this. Getting people involved with the process, getting tips. Why don't you do this? If you tried doing this, this bit of equipment would be better. It's a really, really cool way to do it, kind of a collaborative build.
And obviously the skills way beyond anything we could do. But if you have got the skills, it's always useful, I think, to follow along, if you want to make your own All the tech details are on there as well. So if you ever dreamed of having a handheld Super Nintendo back in the day, there is one in the works right now. So I'll link that. And of course, all the rest of the stories in this week's show notes. Now we're going to chat to this week's special guest, Rob Smith, on the way. Amazing YouTuber, developer, crazy inventor as well. He's going to be our special guest on the show in just a second. Before we do that, let's take a moment to give a mention to another huge supporter of the Retro Hour podcast. That is our friends at Shopify. Now you know Shopify. They're the company that if you sell anything at all, whether it's in person or online, they are the platform that's got you covered. And actually they power millions of businesses all around the world, including some huge ones, Mattel, Gymshark, and our friends at Bitmap Books. They use Shopify to sell their books on there. We have as well. We've used them for about a year. And also companies just getting started. The great thing is, I mean, if you do sell anything online, their platform is incredible because it's all point and click. And the thing is, it's something that you don't have to figure out yourself because we speak from experience. We wrote a book. We did a Kickstarter on it. I remember, aside from the effort we put into writing the book, one of the hardest things, I remember Joe actually doing this all over Christmas. It was printing out labels, finding the addresses, working out how much the postage was going to be for all of them. That was probably as hard a work as writing the book, I'd say, Joe.
Yeah, it was pretty grueling, to be perfectly honest. And, printing them all off, I think we had a conveyor belt going at the moment of me, Dan, and our wives,
Yes.
of Dan printing them out and then organizing them into piles, and then we were all packing it. It was pretty intense. We went old school, didn't we?
If Kickstarter had the services that Shopify have, that would have took a hell of a lot of a headache out of it because Shopify, they've got these gorgeous templates. So basically you can, I've got mates who've built Shopify stores on their lunch break. They're all ready to use. You can customize them as well with your brand style, your fonts as well. And they've got some amazing AI tools. AI tools that are actually helpful, that will help you write your product descriptions, your page headlines, even make your photography look more appealing as well. And what amazing thing is, it's like having a marketing team behind you too. They'll create your email campaigns, your social media posts as well. And they do all the stuff we mentioned then, like, they work out all the weight and the shipping. You can print your labels directly from it as well. You actually got a little label printer when you're sending our books out from Shopify, I remember, Ravi?
Yeah. And, I think there's no coding required as well, which is fantastic. But if you want to get deep into the coding, you can. It's got multiple options. Really fantastic for the checkout service as well. You can apply discounts, all sorts.
Yeah, it's like having basically a commerce expert with world-class experience helping you out, managing your inventory, international shipping, even processes stuff like returns and lots more as well. Honestly, if you sell anything online or in person, they're little point-of-sale systems as well. You're ready for Shopify. So why don't you turn your big business idea into with our friends at Shopify. Now, you can actually try it out for just £1 a month. Now, if you head to our link, they'll know that we sent you. You can try it out for that exclusive offer, £1 a month. Honestly, it's a no-brainer. Head to shopify.co.uk/retro-hour, all lowercase, all one word, shopify.co.uk/retro-hour. I'll put that in the show notes. And a big thank you to our friends at Shopify for their support of the show. All right, then next, we're going to welcome on this week's special guest, talking to a developer, the guy behind the awesome retro.directory. Find your local arcade on that website, and also some incredible, wacky inventions that he's done as well with our guest, Rob Smith. He's on the way next on the Retro Hour podcast. You're with the Retro Hour podcast, and it is time to welcome on this week's very special guest. Now, anyone that's attended retro shows in the UK over the last few years, and maybe a bit wider afield as well, I'm sure we'll be familiar with our guest this week and some of his crazy inventions that we'll get onto in just a moment as well. Maybe you've used his incredible website, retro.directory, that tells you about some incredible retro events and lots more that are happening near you. Maybe you watch his YouTube channel as well. This is Rob Smith, who is a developer and a wacky inventor. We'll have to get more into that in just a bit, Rob, but welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Hello, that's quite an introduction.
Yeah, appreciate it, yeah. Well, whenever we see you at events, you've always got, something that you're like, Dan, you've got to come and have a look at this, and there's always a big crowd around it. And stuff like your disc cleaner workstation, that plays Rolls Royce car wash while it's washing
pumping
discs,
out beats as it goes.
Yeah.
Levitating Boing Balls, a new game that you've got, floppy disk whack-a-mole. We'll get into all that as well. I mean, one thing we like to do with our guests, Rob, is kind of find out a bit about kind of your geek credentials, kind of where it all began for you. So what was your earliest computer memory then? Where did your journey and your interest start?
Well, it's started off with my dad used to use Commodore VIC-20s for work, and he brought one home, and I would just tinker with it a little bit. And you know, the thing where you type in some of the programs out of the books that come with it, and none of them ever work, although one of them did just once, and it was really cool. It was a bit like Etch-a-Sketch. And I didn't really understand what any of that was, but I played with that for quite a while until it stopped working altogether. And I think I remember, because obviously the electronics interest, I pulled it apart and I'd look inside, switched it back on again, and a transistor exploded and nearly hit me in the face. So that was fun. But then I didn't really play with any computers for quite a while, apart from what was at school, which was BBC Micros. So didn't really get to play with them for quite a while. I was lucky enough to play with a little bit of early Technic Lego on the BBC Micro at school. That was a primary school. And then around the age of 11, I got the Amiga, and that's really where it all started.
Were you one of those kids that took the video recorder apart to see how it worked? And
I would have been in trouble with the video recorder, but it certainly did take things apart, And I was always making things.
I could never put them back together, though. That was my problem.
You have to have screws left over. That's the important bit. If you haven't, then you've put it together wrong. That's the rules.
I think that's pretty cool that you were doing Lego Technic as well. I totally forgot about that. And there was quite a lot of BBC controlled computer devices, robot arms. I remember at one point there was all different things. Did you do much with the BBC then? Was it just the school literacy program stuff?
I think I just got left playing with it one lunchtime. And I think I got as far as making a sort of traffic light sequence happen. And then I didn't see the kit again after that. So I don't really know what happened to it. But just as I was moving out of primary school, just started to see the RM Nimbuses appear. So it gives you an idea of the sort of time.
Yeah. Similar time. Did you have the Archimedes as well then for a while?
They were there as well, although I didn't really get to play with them much. But
And then the Amiga landed. So what kind of stuff did you start to do on the Amiga? I was wondering, you've done a few videos with AMOS, if you had a background in using some of those languages.
Yeah, so when I got the Amiga, obviously like everybody else, I played all the games on it. Obviously, there was the Cartoons Classics pack, so I know Dan's favourite game is in there, Captain Planet.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yep. So played those for quite a while, and then I would explore around with Workbench and and Deluxe Paint and things like that. And then I think it was AMOS Basic came on an Amiga format cover disc, and I just started tinkering with it and playing with it, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but you sort of meddle with it. I sent off for the manual, probably read that cover to cover, I don't know how many times. And then slowly things started to make sense, and I did start to actually create things in it. Nothing that I would ever really want to share with anyone, but but the sort of dreadful things that people did make in AMOS back in the day. And then AMOS Professional was on another cover disc, and I had a copy of that. And then I got the AMOS compiler. And learnt so much about how programming worked. It was a really good foundation for how it all started.
It's interesting because we had Retro Bytes, who's a great YouTuber on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and your story kind of mirrors him in many ways. He got the Cartoon Classics pack. He mentioned getting AMOS on the cover disc. I've got that really strong memory of that as well. And I was reading the latest issue of Amiga Addict magazine, where they interview a few of the guys that worked on Amiga Format and Amiga Shopper, and they mentioned in there that at the time they didn't realise it, but really these magazines and that the tutorials they were doing and the cover discs they were giving away probably gave birth to an entire industry. And so many people had that shared memory of it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I did other things as well, like whilst I was messing with AMOS, I saw some of the extra commands, and the next thing you know, I was wiring things up to the parallel port and seeing if I could mess with stuff in the real world.
Yeah.
Usually just a few LEDs flashing, but it was still fun, a little bit of overlap between the sorts of things that I was interested in.
Because you had an interest in hardware. How did you get that? Were you playing with electronics kits or anything as a kid?
Yes, my parents would buy me electronics kits. Pretty much every Christmas I'd get one with, like the 200-in-1 or those sorts of things. And I'd just mess with them and play with them and eventually break some of them. I'd cut some of the pieces out and then make my own things out of them and destroy them, basically. But learned so much from them, and it was just fun to play with them.
So you got an understanding of resistors and capacitors and little diodes and stuff like that.
That's right, yeah. And obviously how the magic smoke gets released, which is always fun.
Keep that inside.
Yep.
Talk through your Amiga setup that you had back then. What did you have?
So it was standard Amiga 500 Plus with the 1 meg extra chip RAM and a second floppy disk drive. The only difference was I had it connected to a hi-fi, so I got stereo output, but it was connected to a really old TV that was a bit blurry through the TV modulator. So it was challenging to work with, but you work with what you know at the time.
Yeah, so. TV modular. I'm sure that's the only reason that I'm literally the only person in my family that ever needed glasses. I'm sure that is why, from using crap TVs and modulators back in the day.
Well, you say that, but I don't need glasses at the minute.
Right.
So who knows?
Might have a nicer TV than me in your bedroom, Rob.
No, the thing is, it was a larger TV, so it was further away from it. So maybe that's what it was.
Well, I mean, at this stage, and I mean, you talked about, you're initially into playing games. So this more creative aspect of using computing then, did that kind of become more prevalent over time? And what else were you doing apart from programming?
It was just mainly programming. Obviously, playing some of the games. My brothers also were using the Amiga too, and we'd sit together and play things like Dungeon Master and things like that together. Nice collaborative and shouting at each other, but they'd also get annoyed because I wouldn't get off the computer because I wanted to use the AMOS all the time and play with that. So it was a bit of a fight for the access to the machine.
Did you ever release anything like in public domain or anything, or magazines?
So there was two things that happened. One was when AMOS Professional came out on the cover disc, Amiga Format did a Write a Game in AMOS competition, and I'd created a game that I sent to them called In the Pipeline. Now, I didn't know at the time, I'd never seen Pipe Mania, and apparently it was quite a good clone of it. It was one of the winners, which was quite cool. Took about 12 months to get any kind of prize out of them, but...
What did you get?
It was about 50 quid or something like that, right. Which was, when you're a teenager, that's quite nice. And then there was another game which I made, which was a 3D Pac-Man game, which I didn't know had gone into a magazine until I saw it on another YouTube video quite recently, and they were going through a magazine. I was like, whoa, that's my game.
No way.
So, yeah, crazy.
So I guess they didn't send you any money for that one?
No, not at all. That was PD, so that's fine.
So, with the Amiga, floppy disk was the kind of main format at the time. And CD-ROM obviously came later. I remember people hacking their Amigas together and, having maybe a SCSI device or something like that with the CD-ROM. But floppy disks were kind of a way of survival. And I find it really interesting that later on, a lot of your work involves floppy disks, and you seem to have a bit of a fascination with them and how they work. Were you kind of packing stuff together, trying to compress stuff into floppy disks and playing about with them?
No, it was actually grown out of a need because my 500 Plus had died, and I'd found a box of discs in the attic, and I just was curious what was on them because I hadn't seen them and touched them in 10 years, something like that. Obviously, the Varta issue happened on the 500 Plus, so it didn't work. It does now, which is good, but it didn't. So I thought, I wonder if I can try and make something to read these. And whilst I was at university, I'd come across a side of electronics I didn't even know about, which was embedded electronics. And that was all about programming chips that could run code, but they could talk to the outside world. Now, obviously, you've got Arduino and things these days, and it's very common. But back then, I'd never even seen this before, and it was just amazing. And I thought, I wonder if I can use that to try and read a disk. And I hadn't got a clue how it was stored, so it was quite a long time before I actually managed to recover anything off those disks. But it was quite a rewarding process, and I spent a long time documenting that one on my site.
So was that your drawbridge?
That was the drawbridge, yeah.
Tell us about that then for people that aren't familiar with it. Give us a background on what it is.
So it is drawbridge stands for Disk Reader and Writer. It's a strange acronym, but it works. And it literally allows you to read an Amiga disk into an ADF file or write one back again. The clever thing about it is it ran off just a standard Arduino. Now, when I created this, things like Grease Weasel and things didn't exist. So the only other options you had was to use a real Amiga or something a bit more expensive like the CryoFlux or something like that. And I didn't really want to pay that amount of money. I just wanted to experiment this myself. So that's kind of how it all started. And obviously it's updated since then, and now it supports things like the Atari ST discs, and we'll read PC discs as well. But I'm not bothered going any further than that because it's way beyond the scope of what I originally wanted it to do.
there was a lot of different kind of ways that an Amiga disk would work as well. I remember putting it into my Amiga, just being able to read it straight away on Workbench, but then you'd have the NDOS ones as well. And there were also a few interesting disks that were Amiga and Atari. So how did you kind of get around those, and also, a bit of copy protection that might have been on some of the discs?
So the dual format discs just have a clever encoding where the sectors of the data kind of overlaps, and it's encoded in a special way. And they rely on the fact that the early Atari STs only had single-sided drives, so they store most of the information on one side and allow the Amiga to use the other side. There's a lot more to it than that, but I think that's probably explaining that enough. And regarding copy protection, that was really interesting. When I was started to read discs in, I was noticing that if I tried to read something a little bit clever and write it back, it didn't work anymore. So I started having a look at the sort of more low level, what was going on the disc. And there's a whole fascination of crazy different schemes that were used that go outside of the specification of how data is supposed to be written to a disc. And they abuse that in such a way that you can read it back, but you can't write it back to disk again. Because if you do, you basically conform to that specification that they broke originally. And you can detect that in games. And once I'd understood that, I could then successfully read that information too.
I saw a fascinating presentation you did about disk protection and the different types. And it's interesting because it was an arms race, the companies versus the kind of crackers.
Yeah.
Amazing how some of them work and the data gets spread and then brought back together. Were you kind of fascinated just exploring that world? And are there certain people out there that are huge kind of copy protection people that you could talk to?
That was just completely self-explanatory, self-exploring. I looked around, and obviously now I've been in touch with people who've worked on those sorts of things and understand them a bit better than I did. But it was just purely looking at what it's doing and understanding why it works and what it's doing to detect that. At one point, I was even trying to understand it. I actually looked at the WinUAE source code and looked at the data and seeing how it was being interpreted and things like that. So it was a proper deep dive into why things work the way they do and how it works.
Would you ever do that with CD-ROM?
No.
That's another word.
Well, drawbridge has played an important role in preserving history as well. I know your drawbridge devices used to recover the original Lemmings level editor from old floppies. What's kind of the story there, and how did that feel to be, preserving such an iconic piece of gaming history with your device?
When I was working on drawbridge, and I decided to do some updates so that I could try and get it to actually work in WinUAE emulator in real time, I got to a stage where it was really working, and I sent it off to Neil, RMC, or Retro Collective as they now are, and he did this fantastic video about it all and showed that it worked. And then it caught the eye of Mike Daly, who noticed he'd got a load of discs that were all encoded in some rather unusual format and hadn't been able to read them. And I didn't know this was going on at the time, but Neil sent the drive that I'd sent to him to Mike, and Mike recovered the files and sent them back to Neil. And then I was just absolutely amazed when I saw what had happened, and that was an amazing experience and feeling, knowing that had happened and that information had been recovered. But it's not the first time I'd had that. I'd had lots of people email me saying, I'm just so grateful because I've managed to retrieve files that I thought I'd lost or would never be able to access again. And it's been quite rewarding just hearing people's stories.
If you told you as a kid that you're responsible for preserving a part of Lemmings history like 30 years ago, it'd have blown your mind back then a bit.
It would, but it has always been one of my favourite games, so that's fair enough.
I find it really interesting as well that, Drawbridge was out there and there were other products. Was there anything that defined it and made it different other than it kind of being a really cheaper way to do it?
Because I'd put all the plans on my website showing you how to do it, and I wasn't charging for any of that. And it was literally just bits you could buy from eBay or wherever. It didn't cost anything, and it literally just a couple of components and a few wires, and you could build your own interface. So easy, and it just worked. Very, very, very straightforward.
Did that help you when you were getting the floppy drive to work on the Mister as well? Which I was amazed that the floppy drive didn't work on the Mister from the start, because loads of people were kind of running old systems on there, old cores, and it's just a perfect thing to have running on there.
The knowledge I learned from it was really, really useful, but the hardware that I've built for the Mister is completely different. It's a lot simpler, but it's completely different. And I've just started working back on the last bit of that I wanted to do. So the Mister Mini-MIG core, for example, doesn't support any copy protected images, so you can't put SCP or IPF files on there. So the minute I'm working on trying to make the core read those as well, which would be really nice, so you don't have to play pirated, cracked games on there. I think that'd be quite nice to see.
I mean, whenever I see you at shows and events, I mentioned at the start there, you've always got some incredible new invention, and generally, people are around you with the jaws dropped. I think it was at Ravi's Robin Hood show when you first showed me this device that you've got, what basically allows Windows to natively read and write Amiga disks, which was always something that I heard was impossible before. So give us kind of the background on this project then, and how you managed it.
So this continued the work from Drawbridge and the stuff I'd done to allow floppy disks to work within WinUEE, which I'd also added support for Greaseweasel and Supercard Pro boards as well. And I thought to myself, I always wanted to be able to do it myself. And it'd just been sitting there on the backlog for a long, long time. And then I thought, no, I'm going to have a go at this. And I sat there tinkering and working my way through it. And it actually wasn't as hard a task as I thought it would be, because there's plenty of libraries out there, for example, that will understand say an ADF file, a disk image file, and allow you to see the files on it. So merging that with what I'd already written for Drawbridge to read the data off the disk, which essentially does create an ADF file, it's all just fitted together. So that was quite nice.
Does it image the disk then? Is that how it works?
No, it's actually reading it in real time, but it's obviously it remembers the tracks as it read them in, so it doesn't have to keep reading them. So it does kind of decode them into a suitable buffer, but it's not imaging the disk. You don't have to wait for it. It's kind of real time.
Yeah, that blew my mind when I saw that. Back in the day, it was always you needed hardware to do it. It was always, that the PC controller, it's impossible to read and write Amiga disks on it. So, yeah, that was incredible when you did that. But I mean, it's also been extended to other platforms as well. I mean, obviously, you're very well known for your Amiga work, but I mean, Drawbridge has got, support for Atari ST and PC disk now as well. I mean, are there any other retro platforms that you're passionate about apart from the Amiga, or maybe any that you're kind of curious to tinker with and do a bit of work on?
I've never really been involved with any of the other systems. So I don't really know much about them. I was tempted when I released my Christmas game last year, because I was kind of dared to maybe having a look at the Spectrum, but I don't really know anything about it at this stage. So, yeah, it's kind of out of my area of expertise at all.
Well, you mentioned about the Christmas game there as well. I mean, you definitely want to hear more about that in just a moment, but also kind of hardware versus software then. I mean, do you have like a preference? Because you work on both, with your building devices and then your AMOS coding as well. I mean, do you prefer kind of one process to the other, or any that you find more challenging?
I generally find the software side goes smoother. The hardware side usually takes 5 times longer than I expect it to. Because something won't work, or a wire will fall off and I hadn't noticed, or something will go wrong, or I'll blow something up, or I can't remember what I was doing recently. I was messing with pipe picos and I managed to go through 2 of them in the process. So.
Oh, wow. Well, tell us about some of the games that you've worked on as well, because if people go to your website, you've actually got an itch page with a bunch of titles on there as well. Tell us
yes.
About some of these. Like Trick or Treat looks incredible. Halloween themed game. You've got Santa's Present Drop.
Yeah, so a whole series of those ones. That one started off years ago as an iPhone game, because I just wanted to learn how to program on the iPhone, and it stayed on the App Store for a while, and then I took it off. Then I converted it to an HTML game, and then I thought, I wonder if I can write this in AMOS. So that became the first theme, and then I kind of carried on the Santa's Present Drop, building on the previous game as and continuing the storyline, right up to the last one we had, which was Santa's Present Drop, the Grunch's Revenge, which completely different type of game, sort of a cross between sort of Lemmings and some sort of puzzle game. I think it was possibly a little bit too difficult for some people because they struggled with it. That was a huge, major undertaking, that one. Massive game, and that took me about 6 months to sort of make in the background.
How did you make it then? What was kind of the process there?
So that one was all AMOS again. That one started off with me building a level designer for what I wanted it to do, And then there's quite a lot of logic in there. So, for example, like one of the characters could walk over a button and it can trigger something to happen. So I started to build all this logic in where something can trigger something else to happen. And then once I'd got that working, it was slowly just building all the framework around all the things that I wanted to happen over time. And then literally you do all the fun bits at the end, which is all the sound effects and all the music and all that sort of stuff. So that's always the polish at the end.
What's your process of doing that, like sound effects?
Just randomly grab things that I think fit, pretty much. But I've been lucky always with all the games I've done. Someone's always done the music for me because that is something I cannot do. So that's always been really helpful. But then one of the things I've done is, because I like to help other people learn, is every single one of those games pretty much has got the source code included with it as well. And most of them have got a video that explains how it works as well. So there's kind of a full circle between, if you just want to play the game, that's fine. But if you want to learn a little bit as well, there's that side to it as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important, that you've got like that educational aspect and you're putting all of this out on YouTube. Like quite a lot of it's over my head, but I enjoy your videos and I love the way you kind of present it as well. Have you got some good feedback from people about them?
Yeah, I do. I get some very nice feedback. Mostly positive, which is nice. Hardly anything negative. So that's
on YouTube. That's rare.
I know.
So tell us about your channel, and for people that haven't watched it, what can they expect from it, and kind of what inspired you to start documenting your work on YouTube?
Well, that all literally started again when I started the stuff with WinUAE. I made a video just showing how to install my little drawbridge board into a floppy drive, and I noticed it was doing quite well. So I thought, okay, I'll make a video and see how it goes. And I did one of the ones which was the Santa's present drop. And obviously they don't do a lot to start with when you're first starting a channel, but I enjoyed making it. And I thought, it's good, because I'd always wanted to have a go at video editing. So for me, it was a nice learning curve about something I was really interested in. So yeah, that was good. And obviously it's grown over time, and it kind of goes all over the place. Sometimes it's software, sometimes it's hardware, sometimes it's repair, sometimes it's just me having fun. But it generally is, if I find it fun, I'm hoping everybody else will. And I don't really have a specific theme I stick to, although most of it's sort of around the retro topic.
One video that I loved recently, you did like kind of a retrospective of Xcopy on the Amiga, which for anyone that used an Amiga back then, obviously I think everyone had a copy of that in their disc box. I was actually quite amazed when watching your video to see that it actually did come as an official boxed product. Yes. I was wondering who the heck bought Xcopy back in the day. So tell us why that meant so much to you then, and tell us a bit about the kind of what you learned from covering Xcopy in that video.
Well, first of all, I didn't realise that there were that many different versions of it. I think I saw a box copy on eBay a while back, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. There's a story here. The interview that I did, which was really, really nice, actually came out as a result of the first Kickstart event, Ravi's first Kickstart event, when I had my copy disc station, and I got contacted querying about the design, because the design was sort of very Xcopy-like. And I think there was some concern that I might be trying to sell this product, and a bit of concern about sort of, copyright and that sort of thing. Obviously, that wasn't the case, and it got spun around that, would you like to come and talk about this? Because obviously you've got some history there, and I learned loads and loads and loads about that too. But it was a video that took a long time to make. That interview was, before I edited it, was about an hour and a half long. Really, really interesting, and it's a shame I had to cut it down so much. But the rest of the story as well, all the different versions of Xcopy and all the features that came with it, and then the Cyclone dongle as well, which was something I'd never had before, and it was interesting seeing how that worked and exploring that software too, and all the other little programs as well that most people would never have even realised came with Xcopy, which I thought was just really interesting.
Yeah, it's great, because I mean, now you're getting into that area where you're doing it's pretty much documentary, isn't it, really? So there must have been quite a lot of work went into that video. How did you go about researching it?
Lots and lots and lots and lots of time on the internet, and asking lots of information from Christian, who was the guy who did the interview.
Yeah.
Obviously, he had a lot of inside knowledge. So
it's an incredible watch. Now, looking at your website as well, there's some more interesting things on there that instantly stand out to me. Tell us a bit about your karaoke software then. Did you get love for karaoke?
No, it was a bit of fun while I was, believe it or not, I started that while I was at college doing my GCSEs. And I was around a friend's house who also had an Amiga. And I was laughing because his brother was singing along to something, and I thought, if I could make some software that did this, and I just made it for a bit of fun. I wrote it for Windows, and it was one of the early things I wrote, written in Delphi. And it didn't do anything for quite some time, but I enjoyed making it, and I learned lots from it. And all it did was allow you to synchronize the words to some music. So very, very simple. And then whilst I was at university, I made it a shareware product, and I was so excited the first time it sold a copy. And it didn't sell another one for like 6 months after that, but it sold a copy. And it was amazing. But the most exciting thing for me was when I got a random email one day from a company called Televirtual, who you may or may not know who that is. They're the people who did the Nightmare TV series.
Yes.
And it was directly from Tim Child, querying me about could they use this software for some TV program they were working on. And I thought it was spam to start with, so I ignored it. And then it came again a week later. And then I went up to Norwich and spent a week in Norwich working with them and helping put this TV series together. And I spent the whole summer holidays basically synchronizing up music to to the lyrics and getting paid for it as well. So that was awesome.
That's incredible. Must have been like, I don't know if you're the same as me, like Nightmare was religious viewing when I was a kid. It must have been a bit of a I'm not worthy moment to get to work. Yeah,
it was brilliant. And there, because obviously the early Nightmares, it was all hand-drawn cell paintings. They got them all in frames all over the wall in the office. So it was like, It was just like, wow, when you walked in. And incredible.
Have you got a song that you always do on karaoke then after that?
Nope. But you know what?
We're not going to ask you to do it.
The scary thing is, after synchronizing so many of those, some of the really fast songs where you no chance of keeping up, you actually end up memorizing them, and it's quite scary.
Yeah, just singing them in the kitchen. Yeah. Let's talk a bit more about some of your wacky inventions, which I always love seeing. Tell us about you mentioned it at the start, the Amiga Boing Ball levitating project. Then how does this work, and or is that like a magician's secret?
In the background you can probably see it if you're watching the video version.
It's in the background. It's not particularly a magician's secret. It's basically a kit that you can buy. There's a levitator and a magnet, but the art was in building a suitable base that disguised the levitating thing, and the nice globe that obviously is the Boing Ball. And that took quite a while to design and 3D print and work out so it all fits together, and lots of prototypes. And it's quite a simple thing to make, but the kit's quite expensive. So that's why I've never decided to sell them.
I thought it was quite interesting that you chose kind of like a sidecar on the Amiga to levitate the Boing Ball on, because later on you did the A590 project, which for our listeners that probably don't know about Amiga, A590, they won't know what that is at all. But it's a sidecar that you kind of stick on the side of your Amiga. It expands it. It does lots of different options like SCSI. I think it's quite old school as well. So you modernized it a bit. How did you approach that project? Because I know it was a massive undertaking.
That one was, I just seen a broken one on eBay, and I thought, well, I'll have a look. I've always wanted a hard disk for an Amiga, so I ordered it. And I think it sat in the corner of the room for like 6 months before I did anything with it. Half the bits were missing from it, and the owner didn't even know if it worked or not. And I plugged it in and it didn't work, obviously. So that was the first step in to try and troubleshoot it. And I discovered online that I could get all of the schematics for it. And obviously, having the background in electronics, I could start poking around and seeing what was going on. And that was a lot of steps to actually get that one up and running. And once it was working, and it can have RAM on it, and I'd replaced all the RAM and got that working, the next thing was to sort out the hard disk solution. And I think at the time, the Blue SCSI 2 had just come out.
Yeah.
So I installed one of those, and it just worked. It was brilliant once I'd actually fixed all the problems with it. And there were that many chips that are broken in it that needed replacing, but that's what happens with the old kit, though.
I kind of like the case that you did with it as well.
Well, you see, there's been quite a few of these A590s over the time.
Yeah, so I'm not referring to the transparent one.
Yes, that was the last one beautiful. I've done, yes. I really wanted to just show the insides of one, because they're pretty boring grey boxes, and I thought, well, it'd be nice to be able to see inside. And I thought, It needed a case anyway, because when I'd got that one, it was just a motherboard. I hadn't got the case for it at all. So it needed one. I thought, well, print one, but let's get one made transparent. And it just really finished it off. And obviously then I had to light it up inside as well. So, but I designed the case to actually incorporate the blue SCSI so that the card stuck out the front. So you could easily swap out the hard disk if you did to, or put it into a machine and copy stuff onto it.
I always think it's cool when you get solutions like that can modernize to a point a retro system, because it is a fine line, isn't it? I mean, sometimes, where do you kind of stand on this? I mean, obviously we like having mod cons. No one wants to use an Amiga 500 with a single floppy drive anymore. But is there a point when it goes too far for you and it's kind of a middle ground? How does that kind of go?
I don't really mind. I've got a 1200 with the Pi Storm in it, although I don't really use it particularly much. And that was just more because it's interesting to see. I'd like to try and keep it as original as possible, but so for example, I will install the Go drive in all my machines, which allows me to keep the original floppy drive intact. Because I like to keep that in there because, well, floppy drives, and I don't know, something about nostalgia about it, sitting there hearing it tick quietly. So kind of keeping a balance, I think.
You know, it's weird you mentioned because for people that haven't used an Amiga, the internal floppy, well, and all the floppy drives on it as well, if you've got extra ones added to it, they make a little tick sound like every 3 to 4 seconds, don't they? When it's basically the heads of the drive seeking slightly to see if a floppy disk has been inserted.
Yep.
And when I was a kid, I hated that noise. I used to run like an anti-click program to turn it off. Now leave it on all my systems. It's a bit like the heartbeat of the machine. So it's funny kind of what feels nostalgic and grows on you after time.
The anti-click's quite clever how that works, because it pulls the head right back to track 0 and then tries to step it back 1 track further, but it can't.
Yeah.
And you can't hear it. And they couldn't do that originally because some of the drives would let you do that and it damaged the mechanism. So.
Right. I always wondered why, if you could do that, they didn't at the factory.
I always loved how, you put a floppy disk in the Amiga and it's a very dirty pirated disk, and the Amiga would vibrate as it's loading certain ones on the table. Yeah, that's what I miss. That kind of noise.
Yeah.
It was your track loaders, wasn't it? I remember, I think it was Lotus 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah, literally, like my table would vibrate when that loaded.
Yeah.
The noisier the floppy drive, the better back in the day.
Absolutely. And that was one thing that was quite nice with me doing the thing for the Mister now, is the drive sounds exactly the same, which is just what you want it to do. The sort of work that I've done with WinUAE, it doesn't sound the same. It can't because of the way it works, but with something like the Mister, it can, and it just brings that feeling back again of how you remember it. I mean, I think because the number of times I've probably played Lemmings over the years, I know exactly the sounds that it makes as it loads the disc, and it was just nice to hear them again.
Yeah, you'd kind of, you'd have those loading sounds just as you would with the Spectrum or something earlier. But talking of discs, like vibrating tables and stuff, would your disc cleaning station help and cause less issues?
Tell us what it is as well for people that haven't seen it.
So, it started off as a bit of a joke, and it probably still is a bit of a joke. It's a ridiculously over-the-top way of cleaning a floppy disk that may have been stored badly and sort of maybe collected a bit of mold or something like that. And you put a disk into it, and it works away into a station where these foam pads come down and sort of clean the surface of the disk whilst it's playing some music in a rather ridiculous style, and it's like pouring isopropanol on things all over it. And then once it's done that for a while, it then moves the disk into another area where it blows hot air at the disk, just like a car wash would do. Now, I did actually do a head-to-head test with that compared to cleaning it manually, and surprisingly enough, it actually was really effective. So,
it's not just a gimmick; it actually works.
No, it actually does work. But the sound side is obviously, when you're doing this, is the internal fabric on the disc gets wet, so it takes a long time to dry. And when I discovered that washing up liquid actually worked better than isopropanol, it took 45 minutes to dry a disc. So.
Wow.
I love how over-engineered it is. It's deliberately done so you can watch the action.
Absolutely.
When I was a young boy, I went to the Tate Gallery and they had a huge machine, over-engineered, designed to fold a paper aeroplane and fire it out, and it never worked. That was the whole art piece. And, I would consider the disc cleaning station as a kind of piece of Amiga modern art. I think it's really amazing. And you always spot it at a show as well, wherever you go.
You hear it.
Yeah, I was going to say you hear it. And there are those that complain about the fact that the songs get stuck in their head by the end of the day.
You must have heard that 1,000 times.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
And then there's those that complain that they can't upload it to YouTube because of the copyrighted music. So.
Well, the latest project that you're doing is disc related as well, and this is we've kind of described it as a whack-a-mole game. So we've seen floppy disk orchestras. How is this different?
So I thought it would be fun to create a game where discs would pop up and you'd have to push them back in again as quick as possible. But me being me, I wanted it to be a bit silly. So sometimes they just pop up a little bit, and sometimes they actually spit out and fly out and fall on the floor because it's fun. And I've liked whack-a-mole games. So that's exactly what I wanted to create. But then I also added a twist to it. So it wasn't just that you had to eject, you had to push them back in again. Sometimes it was getting you to eject them as well. So there's a little eject button on them. But to keep it in line with the retro theme, the whole thing runs off an Amiga 600. So.
I love it. Yeah, it sounds like such a good concept. Like I've been to a few demo parties where they've done floppy disk throwing competitions and stuff. I can imagine you would invent like a floppy disk machine gun or something in the future.
Catapult, yeah.
And then I was really lucky. I asked Hoffman to create a soundtrack for it, describing exactly what it was. And I sent him a little video, and the soundtrack he created was absolutely perfect how it should work. And it really does get you on edge. And I've just invested in a slightly louder sound system for it to really do that justice.
I can't wait to play on that. Do you have any shows that you're going to be showing that at?
So I will be showing it at the Cambridge event, which I think will have happened by now.
Yes, last weekend. Yeah.
Yep. And I haven't got any plans after that just yet. I would love to take it to Amiga Germany, but there's no way that's going to fit in my bag. So
you'll end up detained at the airport bringing that through. Right?
Well, do you know what? I took that and the Mister and things like that to Amiga Island last year. The things that confused them were floppy disks. They didn't understand what they were, but they were quite happy with the floppy drives. And then I got stopped at the airport on the way back because of a 4-plug strip, which apparently set off the explosives detector.
Same thing happened to me recently as well. Yeah, it turns out they don't like extension leads.
No, it's very strange.
I had 3 German police running up to me and ripping apart my Amiga. To Germany,
you don't want that.
Yeah, avoid it.
So I'm not taking anything to Germany because, well, don't have the space. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of events as well, you do run an incredible service, retro.directory, which you list loads of community things on there, including podcasts. Thank you for featuring us on there and our respective YouTube channels. You've got Twitch channels on there as well. Very importantly, events as well. So you've got this great map where basically looking at it now, I mean, it kind of, you can give it permission to, to see where you are on the map, and it'll tell you what events are happening nearby. And they're not just in the UK, see them on Ireland here, see them all over Europe too. So tell us where the idea of retro directory came from, and what is it for people that might not have checked it out yet?
Well, I got the idea several years ago after visiting the computer museum near me, which is the Retro Computer Museum in Leicester. And I thought that had been there for years and I didn't know about it. And where I live, it's literally about 15 minutes away. So I thought there's got to be loads of these great places out there that are just not getting seen. They can't afford to do the advertising because they run there's charities and things like that, so they can't do that. And I thought it'd be really good to have a resource out there where all of these places are listed, not just museums, but like arcades and user groups and bars and cafes and things like that as well. So I thought I'll put a site together with a map that can have all that on it. And then I thought, well, these places also have special events and things as well, so maybe I should have an events section too. And the biggest thing I wanted to make sure was the whole thing was run free, so anyone could list their own things on there without having to pay. And that's what I created, and I released that about 2 years ago. And I've just released a new update to the site, which adds a whole load of new features and redesigns the site so it's a lot clearer and simpler to use. So, for example, it's now got a service on there where you can sell tickets for your event, and I don't charge for that. It's completely free. There's an alert system so you can sign up and say, hey, I'm sort of here, and I want to know if there's any events going to be happening within, say, 50 miles of me, and it will send you an email when it discovers those. So I really, really want to get the information out there so that when these places are running these things, people get to know about them, because unfortunately, I get emails every now and then saying, "Oh, I'm sorry to let you know such and such place is closed," and it's really sad, especially when you know they're not even on the directory and they haven't even seen it. Because go on.
I think it's just so good because getting so many people involved, like this is one thing for the podcast that all our listeners would be really interested in. Having radiuses with user groups that are in the area, but stuff like points of interest, statues, tribute, places where things were made. Whenever I go on holiday, I check on Retro Directory and see where the stores are, because it's user recommended and created content, which is a lot better than Google. It's actually getting that specific stuff that we really want. I think it's an amazing resource. And you did mention tickets there as well, so that's got no booking fee then.
No booking fee. You just pay whatever the card transaction fees are, which I've nothing to do with. So
that's absolutely fantastic. And also, you're looking for advertisers on there as well.
I am, yeah.
It's a great place to advertise.
So, yeah, obviously it costs me a certain amount to run the site. I've had to change how it sends emails out to stop them getting caught in spam. That costs money. So it needs to start paying for itself. So I've got a retro banner advertising system in there. And yes, it will take animated GIF files. And the size they are sort of a traditional banner size that you may have seen back in the day as well. So not intrusive, not filling the page with ads like you see on certain websites these days, just one advert, quite neatly placed and not in the way. And anyone can sign up and set those up themselves.
It's amazing because even if you're in your own town and you've not, checked it out before, check it out on Retro Directory and you might be like, oh my God, I can't believe this was here, or this was so close to me, fantastic resource. I can't praise it more, I think it's just amazing.
Well done, Rob. Keep up the good work. I'll link it in the show notes as well for, I'm sure everyone's seen it, but for the people that haven't, definitely check it out. Anything coming up on YouTube then? Any videos that you're working on currently? What can we expect from there?
I've got a build of something I'm going to work on, which I've had the idea for, it must be about 8 years I've had this idea and I just haven't built it yet. And it kind of needs to be built quite soon. And it's not retro computer related, but it's a retro theme, I guess, and you'll see what that is when it happens. Assuming I get it working, because that one's all electronics and hardware based. So that one's going to be a fun build for me. And a whole host of other things as well. Lots to do.
Well, I'm sure we'll see you at an event soon, Rob.
Yes.
You're always great to talk to as well when we see you. So, and a real asset to the community. So keep up the good work, and thanks so much for coming on and being our guest this week. It's been great to catch up.
Thank you for inviting me on.